And it's not on our campaign literature. Instead, all we're saying is, oh, don't vote for the Green Party because they will legalise all drugs.
That doesn't actually sound too bad, to be honest. Like, you know, legalising all drugs, make sure it's heavily regulated, making sure people who are unfortunately addicted to drugs are not being scalped by unscrupulous dealers. Okay. Let me know when there's a downside, okay?
I'm as real as a real can get. What you see?
Buongiorno freaks and geeks, welcome back to the channel.
This isn't just a nightmare for the Labour Party, it is the worst type of sit bolt upright in the middle of the night, sweating and screaming nightmares.
And it would seem that Keir Starmer's failings have been feeding the streets for the last few weeks. So why stop that now? In today's video, we are going to pick further over the carcass of the Labour Party and see which direction it should go in next. A sort of soul-searching activity, if you will. Channel 4 decided to have a segment with two people who would be described as occupying within the Labour tent. So let's get straight into that. But before we do, please don't forget to hit the buttons for like, subscribe, and tell me down below, what would you like to see the Labour Party do moving forward? Should they stick with Keir Starmer? Should they get a new leader? If they do get a new leader, should it be left wing? Or should it continue down the path of following anything the Reform Party does? I would love to read it. Anyway, let's get straight into this video.
Well, joining me now is the New Statement's Megan Kenyon and the former number 10 advisor under the Blair and Brown governments, Theo Bertram.
So we've been introduced to two people there. The first from the New Statesman, the second was an advisor to Blair and Brown. And some people might look at that on the surface and say, oh, they must be really far apart. But no, they're not. They actually hold very similar politics, especially if you read the New Statesman today. There is not much difference between what they believe and what Keir Starmer is doing, who is the quintessential Blairite. So it may be two people who supposedly come from different ends of the Labour Party, but not in reality.
Megan, there's a sort of a fake calm in Labour at the moment, but there is a reckoning coming.
Yeah, I think the fact that Labour lost in Gorton and Denton, in Greater Manchester, an area which is such a Labour stronghold, obviously Andy Burnham is the mayor of Greater Manchester there, shows how historic this by-election really is. And to come in third place to the Green Party, who won a 4,000 vote majority, shows, you know, no one was really expecting that. I think everyone thought it would be tight, but not quite the Greens to go out as far as they did.
So that tells me a couple of things. Obviously, Manchester loves the mayor, the current mayor, Andy Burnham. By all accounts, he is quite left of centre. And when you think about what is happening in Parliament now, especially with this current Labour government, they are nothing to the left of Margaret Thatcher. So when it came to by-election time, of course they're going to go with, I guess, the party that most shared their values and politics. Yeah, shouldn't be surprising really. I guess that, as Megan mentioned, the only surprising bit is the scale of the victory. But again, in my last video, I kind of thought that the Labour Party and Reform Party would just they split their own vote. It was essentially right-wingers in that area that were voting for those two parties. They didn't want to touch the Green Party with a barge pole because it is seen as left-wing.
The question of leadership will play out whenever it plays out after the local elections, but Starmer has nailed his colours very clearly, calling the Greens extremists. Isn't it quite hard to shift to the left to try and appeal to people who are going to the Greens if you call them extremists?
He is today what he has always been, and always will be, a Thatcherist.
Yeah, I think what this election showed today is the idea that you can just get by saying, vote for us because we're not reform, has been tested to destruction.
Well, it wasn't really tested to destruction, because as we saw before this Gorton and Denton election, the Reform Party had the biggest swing in another constituency or by-election where Labour had secured it after the 2024 election. So it's been tried, but it never worked in the first place. It only worked at the general election in 2024, where Labour just said, we're just not the Tories. They didn't give anyone anything to vote for. They just gave people something to vote against. And even then, which I should have mentioned in my last video, even though it was described as a landslide victory, and don't get me wrong, the seats distribution would suggest that, Keir Starmer still didn't get the number of popular votes that Jeremy Corbyn saw in 2017 or even 2019. So to say that more people voted for Keir Starmer than Jeremy Corbyn is a flat out lie. People were really turned off voting in elections in 2024. They were just bored of everyone and didn't think they had they just had real options or real alternatives.
People want to vote for something, and I think there are two things that today confirm for the Parliamentary Labour Party. One is that people don't listen to Keir Starmer anymore.
That is absolutely hilarious. Basically, Keir Starmer's walking around the House of Commons saying, I'm in charge, and everyone else is just hitting him with the Bane response.
Do you feel in charge?
And the second is that although people are confident in the Labour Party in the long-term policy reform,
What support?
there isn't enough radicalism, there isn't enough sense of change in the near and medium-term policy change.
I mean, having worked in the centre, is the centre just so weak now?
Worked in the centre, that third way bollocks under Tony Blair and to a lesser extent Gordon Brown, that was always crap. As I've said, that was basically conservatism dressed up with a liberal aesthetics, a very bad liberal aesthetics as well. You were just conservatives with just a little bit more public spending. That was the long and short of it.
But they're incapable of coming up with the ideas.
I think Keir Starmer is Prime Minister with a big majority. It's very difficult to remove Prime Ministers. I was there under Gordon Brown. It took a long time. People were trying to get rid of him and they didn't manage it. And it took a long time for Gordon Brown to take over from Tony Blair. So I think Labour Prime Ministers are more durable than people expect. I think the sort of Game of Thrones drama that we're starting to experience in the Labour Party may go on all year.
I mean, I sort of mean in policy terms, Megan. I mean, do they appear capable of a new agenda, or is it just they're going to communicate what they've been doing a bit better?
I don't think they can communicate anything that they're doing right now any better. I think everyone's got the message and they are thoroughly rejecting it. They're either saying, oh, you just want to be reform. So if you want to be reform, why don't I just vote for reform? And everyone that was left of centres thinking, this is no longer a socialist party as it says on its membership card, I might as well go to the eco-socialists, in inverted commas, the Green Party.
Yeah, it's quite interesting. When I was up in Gorton and Denton last weekend and I went out with some Labour canvassers, and they were saying to me, there are so many positive things that we've done, the Renters' Rights Act, the Employment Rights Bill, that we're just not talking about, and it's not on our campaign literature. Instead, all we're saying is, oh, don't vote for the Green Party because they will legalise all drugs.
That doesn't actually sound too bad, to be honest. Like, legalising all drugs, make sure it's heavily regulated, making sure people who are unfortunately addicted to drugs are not being scalped by unscrupulous dealers. Okay. Let me know when there's a downside, okay?
And that didn't really seem to cut through with voters, and it didn't really seem to be winning over the Labour activists too.
What do you think the threat is now in terms of the Greens? Do they represent to Labour what reform represented to the Tories?
I think it's perhaps too early to say that yet.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
Like I said, the New Statesmen are not very different from the centre bollocks of Blair and Brown. How can you tell me, look at this current Labour administration, that Greens do not present a threat from the left, and you're for the New Statesmen? Get over yourself.
This is obviously a by-election, but I think once the May elections come around, we've obviously got elections in Scotland and Wales, where the Greens are looking, particularly in Wales and in the English local elections in London, to make some quite big gains. I think after today, we could see in Wales the potential of them even getting into government in the Senedd alongside Plaid Cymru, after obviously Plaid Cymru won the Caerphilly by-election last year. So it's certainly, the momentum is picking up.
Theo, what do you see as the sort of the structural shift that may happen now?
I think behind closed doors, what's happening among the would-be leadership contenders, among different groups in the Labour Party, and indeed inside Number 10 itself, is a sort of soft manifesto building. There is going to be a policy change that is likely to happen, whether Keir Starmer is toppled or not, after the May elections.
Move this man! Move!
And I think there is a sense that there needs to be greater boldness in what the near-term policy is. So you're seeing some of those, that desire, that appetite for a bit more radicalism, and I think that would be a good thing from Labour.
We're already seeing radicalism to the right. Like, Keir Starmer is a die-in-the-wall ultra-conservative. I can imagine him having a secret shrine to Margaret Thatcher at this point, and people keep going on and on and on about him being a human rights lawyer, myself included, but we never actually analyze what side of the human rights debate he was on, because there's always two sides to that type of stuff. Is he on the side of protecting human beings from being tortured, or is he on the side of government being able to get away with torturing human beings? And I will say in my full chest, Keir Starmer is definitely within the latter camp.
But how can you balance the demands of both left and right if you've got to appeal to both those people with a new policy agenda?
There are things...
Can you triangulate it?
When you call it left and right, it's definitely hard to balance that. Instead, I would call it working class versus, the rich and owners. That is very much easy to decide where you sit within that dynamic. We know there is a very, very small ownership class in this country and a very, very massive working class population. So to call it left versus right is counterproductive. And I don't know why Channel 4 is framing it like that. It's the haves and the have-nots.
Parties have proved that you can do that in the past, but I think take council tax. Council tax needs reform. Taking that on is not a left-right issue, it's a boldness issue. Social care, it's an issue that also needs solving. These are big, meaty problems, and I think if people think that you are radical, that you're serious, that you have a purpose, I think that makes it easier to go out and convince them on the doorstep in places like Manchester.
We're really interested to get some insight into where this former advisor to Blair and Brown sits on those, as he described them, very meaty issues. Where do you sit on council tax? Should it be increased? Should it be decreased? If it does decrease, who should be paying for it instead? Where do you sit on social care? Should it get more funding? We need more, obviously, social workers. Where will we get the money for that is the question. And some of it tells me that this individual would rather decrease benefits that people get just so to enable the increase in spending on social care, until he tells me otherwise. That's what I'm going to think.
And what do you think Andy Burnham is hinting at tonight? Is he going to have another go at a by-election and sort of dare the Labour Party to deny him again?
I'm not sure, but I think we haven't heard the last from him yet, certainly.
What is that? Give an answer. Is that a good thing? Should he go for another by-election seat? I definitely think so. The Labour Party definitely needs someone like him. I feel that Keir Starmer is so anti-Northern, so racist against the people in the North. The thought of a party leader being from the North for Keir Starmer makes his skin crawl, and that was the main reason he didn't let well, they say it was the whatever committee within the Labour Party, but it was definitely Keir Starmer who told him, don't let Andy Burnham even become a candidate in the Gorton and Denton by-election. That, for my opinion, I don't mind if Andy Burnham still wants to be Labour. I don't think he should be, but if he still wants to be a part of the Labour Party, go for another by-election. Really, you should just step down. Like, you should do the ultimate surprise by not even running in the May elections. Just step aside and let Labour deal with the fallout from that. That is my opinion anyway.
What would your guess be on that?
I would be surprised if Andy doesn't keep trying for a seat, and I suspect there'll be lots of Labour parties around the country that would be keen to have him as their MP.
Does it make sense that people seem to sort of regard him as some sort of holy grail, given that he lost the leadership twice?
I think it's a lot easier to be outside the cabinet and looking in from the outside, if I can phrase it like that, rather than being inside the cabinet and trying to be loyal at the same time. So I think in some ways, I mean, we are seeing Manchesterism. It has had a big boost, but a lot of that has been from things that are not entirely within Andy Burnham's control. But I do think he does offer the ability to communicate. I think he offers an optimistic agenda. I think that's something that voters and the PLP itself are keen to see.
Theo Bertram, Megan Kenyon, thank you very much indeed.
What does that even mean, though? He lost the leadership election twice. Why is he still considered a holy grail? Maybe because there was context around why he lost those two leadership elections. Maybe there's some underhand work happening with the Labour Party and the membership. I definitely think there's a sort of anti-woman leader element within the current Labour Party membership. Well, actually, I don't know if it's in the current because they expelled most left-wingers, but there's definitely an element of anti-woman leader sentiment. So who cares? Let him try. Let him try again. Like, how many times has Nigel Farage lost something and he still keeps coming back for more? And he's definitely held up as the holy grail of the right and fascists within this country. Yeah, so that was a quick look at some of the reaction from the fallout of the last by-election. I was thinking about looking at the Channel 4 interview with the Green Party leader Zach Polanski, but there's gonna be enough time for that in the future. So tell me down below, what do you think is the right course of action for the Labour Party? Should Andy Burnham go for another by-election in the country? Will he become leader one day and ultimately Prime Minister? Anything is absolutely possible in today's politics. If you like audiobooks, I voice one, link in the description below. And yeah, if you've made it to this point, thank you so much. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and I will see you very, very soon. Okay, ciao.